We're in the first week of February, and I don't know about you, but for me it really feels like spring is coming. It might not look like it today because it's all grey and gloomy, typical weather that we get at this time of the year, but seeing all the snowdrops, daffodils popping through in the woodlands and on the sides of the streets, it really feels really exciting. And now I've got that itch of actually getting some seeds in the soil and get a head start of the growing season. In January, probably it's too early to start sowing your seeds, at least for me, but now feels like we need to get a head start of the growing season. So in this video I'm going to show you 3 things that I am doing now at the beginning of February to make sure that we are prepared for the growing season. In this area of our front garden, under the oak tree and along the fence, Fraser and I really want to have a small orchard. It can be quite expensive to get fully established fruit trees, and one of the easiest ways and one of the cheapest ways to do it is by getting yourself some bare root plants. You might be wondering, what does it actually mean, bare root plants? It's the way the plants get sold. So, and this is particularly for any younger plants. Basically, the plants get lifted out of the soil and they are sold with no soil around the roots, hence the name. And usually bare root plants are much cheaper because obviously it's easier to transport plants with no soil, and they're usually younger plants as well. I have unwrapped the cling film from the root ball and also removed the coir, which is just a temporary medium that was placed around the roots, making sure that they don't dehydrate in the transportation. And I can actually see that, after inspecting the roots, that they're all nice and healthy, and you can actually see some of the smaller roots forming already, which shows that the plants are alive and eager to start growing. So if you know where your trees or shrubs or bare root or roses are going, you could plant the bare roots directly into the ground. But because we are going to be building a chicken coop and possibly a rabbit hatch in the area next to the mini orchard that we're going to be planting up, I don't want my trees to be getting in the way during the building work. So temporarily I'm going to put them in the pot, and once we're ready, once everything has been built, we can then plant the trees in the ground. I'm going to be using this old nursery pot that I've got from a previous plant, and when you're potting up your bare root trees or roses just temporarily into a pot, you don't need to be too worried about the size of this pot. It's absolutely fine for the roots to be quite snug in the pot. Obviously you don't want the pot to be too small so that the roots are super crowded, but this seems to be absolutely fine for the size of the root ball. So let's get it planted up. When planting a bare root fruit tree, the most important thing is getting the depth right. Look for the soil mark on the trunk or the graft union and make sure it sits just above the soil line. Here you can see I'm adding some compost at the bottom of the pot, then placing the bare root plant and covering the roots with the compost. I keep adding compost to the pot until that graft union sits just above the compost line. You don't want to bury the graft union too deep because then the plant will struggle. This is it. That's how easy it is to plant a berry tree. And it can save you a fortune as well if you're gardening on a budget, because you can get some of the smaller beetroot trees for under a tenner. And if you're buying a similar sized potted tree, it might be 25-30 pounds. So really an excellent way of adding some structural plants into your garden, especially if you're on a budget. It's cold, so I'm gonna give this plant a really good water, and then I'm going to go inside, get myself some warm cup of tea, and then I'll show you a couple other things I'm doing now at the beginning of February. I've got my cup of tea, some compost, pots, labels and a pen, and most importantly, we've got my sweet pea seeds. I love sowing sweet peas because they're big and nice, easy to handle seeds, and they germinate really well. Some people soak them or even scratch the coating of the seed. I don't do anything, just simply pop them in the compost, and they seem to germinate really well. For sweet peas, I'm going to choose 9cm pots. I'm filling up the pots with some multi-purpose compost, and I'm going to do 4 pots at a time. I'm also breaking up any big clumps and removing any twigs in the compost. For sweet peas, as you can see, they're quite big seeds. So I'm going to place 4 per pot, 1 in each corner. So I'll do 2 pots of Charlie's Angel. And then I simply just press the seed down into the compost, roughly to your first knuckle. And then I'm going to top it up a little bit. And that's it. That's my sweet pea sown. And of course, don't forget the label. Make sure that you put what it is, what variety, and obviously the date. I also want to sow some geraniums, strawflowers, and also chili peppers. The reason why I want to sow geraniums and strawflowers is I'm hoping to enter them for the Chitting flower show that I'm going to be entering in August. So I'm needing to start early to make sure that I'm in time for that day. And then also I want some sweet peppers and chilies just because we love them. And these are also heat-loving plants. So for the germination, the ideal temperature of the soil should be between 21 and 24 degrees of Celsius. We will need to get a heated mat or a heated propagator. So let's go and unbox one. I've had this heated propagator for about 5 or 6 years, so it's been used quite well. And sadly, during the house move, the propagator got damaged, so the lid has broken into the corners, and I don't think it's going to be working as it's supposed to be because there's now 2 holes in these corners, and basically the heat is not going to be contained inside. So it's not going to reach 21 or 24 degrees, the temperature that we need for the seeds to germinate. Very excited to be introducing you to my new heated propagator. It's going to be probably so much more convenient to use because it's narrow and it fits on the windowsill. So I'm very excited about this. Let's go and basically have a look what's inside. As you can see, 7 mini propagators on the main tray. I'll make sure to pop the link in the description. You've got the seed tray with the holes at the bottom, and then you've got your lid. And then we've got our base where the propagators are sitting on, and that's where the heating mechanism is. I decided to fill 2 trays with the compost because I'm going to use one for strawflowers and one for chili peppers. Before I'm sowing the seeds, what I'm going to do is actually submerge these two seed trays into a tray with water, just to let the compost moisten up a little bit. I don't want to sow and then water, because that would dislodge my seeds, particularly for the straw flowers. They're teeny tiny seeds, so we don't want to be watering on top. As we're waiting for the compost to moisten up, what I would like to do is tell you about the third thing that I'm doing this week to get a head start of this for the season. And it's something to do with tatties. Now is a perfect time to get your seed potatoes. I love potatoes. As a Lithuanian, potatoes is probably the main staple of my diet. And it's so easy to grow potatoes as well. And it's so much fun once you put them in the ground, and then once they're ready, when you start digging them, it's like digging for gold. There are three types of seed potatoes. You've got your first earlies, which are the fastest growing and ready to harvest in June. Second earlies that are usually harvested mid-season, and main crop. These are for storage and harvested in autumn. Once you've got your seed potatoes, what you want to do with them is to start chitting them. What that means, it's basically taking a container like this, so an egg carton, and then placing the seed potatoes facing the way up where most of the eyes are. And basically, then you're gonna let them start sprouting. And that's the process of chitting your potatoes. I'm going to place my seed potatoes on the shelves where it's light, cool, and frost-free. Let's go back to the seeds. So you can quite clearly see that the compost is now moist, so it is ready for the seeds. I'm going to use one seed tray for the straw flowers. So I've got varieties called salmon rose and also bright rose. And what I'm doing here in the compost is making two little trenches. Where I'm going to scatter the seeds. Unlike my sweet peas, you're going to see that straw flower seeds are quite tiny. And then all I'm going to do is basically drop some seeds on top of the compost in my little trench. Then I'm doing exact same for the second variety. In my second tray, I'm going to do two different chili peppers. So we've got padron and we've got jalapeno. So I'm not going to do a little trench for the seeds because these ones are larger, so they're easier to handle. I'm going to pick 5 seeds and place them in my tray in one line. So now once I've placed my seeds, I'm going to lightly press them. Press them in the compost and then also just add a sprinkle of the compost on top. Then I'm going to do the same with padron seeds. Place the little lid on top. And that's 2 of our seed propagators are ready to go on the windowsill heated propagator. these are the 3 things that I'm doing in my garden now. We talked about planting the bare root plants, chitting potatoes, and also starting the seeds indoors. There's so much more to come, similar videos like this every week. So please do make sure that you hit a subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a like. And if you've got any questions or perhaps things that you are doing in the garden right now and you'd like to share with me, please put them in the comments. I'll see you next time. Cheerio!